The travel narrative is punctuated by 3 predictions of the Passion. These predictions form the heart of the story and serve to orient the reader to the central theme of the Gospel, that is, the way of the cross, as this slide now will illustrate. We saw that the first prediction of the Passion was not welcomed by the disciples. Peter, we were told, rebuked Jesus for harboring such thoughts about his mission. And Peter, in turn, was sorely rebuked by Jesus for his efforts. The second prediction of the Passion looks almost exactly like the first, and let's turn to it and read it in chapter 9, beginning in verse 30. They went on from there and passed through Galilee, and he would not have any know it. For he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, "The Son of Man will be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him, and when he is killed, after 3 days he will arise." Though the disciples, after hearing the prediction now for the second time, are wise enough not to rebuke Jesus, it's still clear from the context that they don't know what to make of this prediction. In fact, after this prediction, the narrator says explicitly that they didn't understand the saying. And, he adds, they were afraid to ask him, obviously recalling the harsh words Jesus had for Peter during the first prediction. But the situation is actually graver than this. It'd be one thing to lack understanding of a concept. It'd be far worse to hold a position that was diametrically opposite. Yet this is precisely the predicament of the disciples. Our narrator makes this clear by the story he attaches to the prediction. And I should mention in Mark, we frequently have to attend to how the stories are juxtaposed. He's not going to provide us with an interpretive framework alerting us, the reader, as to what to notice. We have to notice the jarring juxtapositions that these stories present. And this story is presented cheek by jowl with the account of the prediction of the Passion. The disciples came to Capernaum, and while Jesus was in the house, he asked them, "What were you discussing on the way?" But they were silent, for on the way they had discussed with one another who was the greatest. And he sat down and called the 12, and he said to them, "If anyone would be first, he must be last of all and servant of all." And he took a child and put him in the midst of them, and taking him in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me." John said to him, "Teacher, we saw a man casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him, because he was not following us." But Jesus said, "Do not forbid him, for no one who does a mighty work in my name will be able soon after to speak evil of me. For he that is not against us is for us. For truly I say to you, whoever gives a cup of water to drink because you bear the name of Christ will by no means lose his reward." If we step back for a second, we'll see in this prediction the same larger schema or pattern we saw during the first prediction. As our slide shows, we see first of all that Jesus makes a prediction about his passion. Secondly, there's a misunderstanding of what that prediction might mean. And then thirdly, there is a concluding statement about the nature of discipleship. In this structure, we see that understanding Jesus is directly linked to understanding one's own status as a disciple. The question, who is Jesus, bleeds naturally into the correlative question, who is the church? Just as the disciples fail to understand the passion of Jesus, so they think of their own status solely in terms of power and glory. In Mark 9, the parallels are made clear in 2 ways. First, by the fact that the disciples turn directly from the prediction of the Passion to their own worries about who is going to be greatest. Jesus asked them in verses 33 to 34, "What were you discussing on the way?" But the narrator reports they were silent, for on the way they had discussed with one another who was the greatest. Obviously, very much in contradiction with what Jesus is teaching about himself and his passion. So Jesus must try again, and our text continues. And he sat down and called the 12 and said to them, "If anyone would be the first, he must be last and servant of all."